Well, welcome back, everybody. Great to have everybody back, and this is our last week of hybrid before we're all in person together. So what we're going to do today is start out with a little review after spring break to just give us some good reminders about the parts of a circle and circumference, and then for the rest of the week we will jump into finding area of a circle and working with that. Okay, so today we're going to just do some notes to review circles and circumference, and there will be some problems along the way that I tell you to complete on your own. And I'm going to have you submit your notes at the end of class today, and I expect them to be fully completed. So even if I don't complete them, you are still expected to complete them on your own, and I'll make sure to point those out as we go. And then for your final part today, there are 8 questions that you're going to answer on ScootPad. So you'll log in there and you will see an assignment, and I've put the name of the assignments at the last page of these notes. So we'll go over that again when we get to the end. All right, let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to have you do right here is to draw a radius and draw a diameter. Let's just review what those parts of your circle are. So if you remember, and maybe you don't, and that's okay too, a radius is going to go from the center of a circle to one edge of a circle. Okay, so that's your radius. And diameter is also going to go through the center, but it's going to go from one end all the way to the other end of a circle, and it has to go through that center point. All right, now a diameter cannot be here. That's called a chord. Okay, so don't draw that. I was just showing an example. I saw some people doing that last week. So a diameter has to go through the middle. Radius just goes from the middle to any one side of the circle. All right, so R, what does R equal? Well, a radius equals the diameter divided by 2. Okay, so the radius is half of the diameter. So you would just take, if you know the diameter but you don't know the radius, you just divide the diameter in half. You divide it by 2. And in order to find the diameter is just going to equal 2 times the radius, or R times 2, or 2 times R. Okay, so the diameter is the whole length of a circle, and the radius is half the length of a circle. So if you have one, it's really easy to find the other. All right, so moving on, let's do just a little bit of quick practice here. So in this first circle here, I have a line that's going from the middle to one end of my circle, so that means it's the radius. So my radius is 4.2 centimeters. And so then to find the diameter, I'm just going to multiply 4.2 times 2, and that's going to be my diameter. So it's 8.4 centimeters. All right, now you do this one here. We have the diameter, so go ahead and finish that one up. Pause the video and then move on to the next page. All right, so now that we have reviewed radius and diameter, let's review what circumference is. So circumference is the distance around a circle. So you might need to pause this video to write down that definition, but circumference is the distance around a circle. And remember, circumference is just that fancy circle word for perimeter. It means the same thing. Perimeter is the distance around an object, like a fence, right? A fence goes along the perimeter of a yard or on the outside of a yard. And so circumference is just specifically talking about circles, but it means the same thing. It's the distance around a circle. All right, so we're going to find the circumference of these circles. And I wrote this really important note right here about writing the equation first. Okay, as we get into our harder problems, writing the equation first is an important step in knowing what to solve and how to find things. So let's take a look at this. Now remember, our formula for circumference of a circle is C equals pi times diameter. Okay, that's the formula for finding circumference of a circle, the distance around a circle. So now that I have my equation written down, you should have written it down too, then I fill in what I know, and I'm going to solve for the variable that I don't know. So right now I don't know circumference, but but I do know pi, and we're going to use 3.14 as pi. And I know my diameter. My diameter in this case is 3.2. All right, so then I just grab my calculator, and I'm just going to multiply 3.14 times 3.2, and I'm going to come up with C equals 10.048 inches. That's it. Super simple. All right, so I'm going to have you do this next one. And again, we write our formula. We're still finding circumference, so circumference equals pi times diameter. But guys, we need to look here. We don't know the diameter. We know that the radius is 4, so that means the diameter is 8. All right, so go ahead and solve your equation now. Now that we know the diameter, solve that equation. Pause the video and then move on to the next page when you're ready. All right, guys, so this next slide here is a little bit more of just an idea that we need to understand about circles in order to just gain as much knowledge about them as possible. And so this sentence up here at the top is kind of weird and a little bit funny, but it's an important concept to understand. The ratio of the circumference of a circle to its diameter equals, and the thing that it equals is pi. Right? So you can draw that little pi symbol there. And I wrote that in the same way here. This word ratio just means division. So if you need help remembering that, that might be helpful to write down, like to division or divide. But what we're saying is that the ratio of the circumference to its diameter is pi. So that just means circumference divided by the diameter equals pi, or 3.14, blah, 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 blah. So let's just practice that right here. So we take our circumference, we divide it by the diameter, and we should get 3.14 continuing. So let's give that a whirl. So we have circumference, 37.68 divided by 12. So let's try that out on our calculators. 37.68 divided by 12, and look at that. When I type that into my calculator, I get exactly 3.14. All right, so that's just one of those important concepts to understand about circles, and it will pop up today in your Scoot Pad problems. All right, moving on. All right, and so the next concept that we looked at the week prior to spring break is finding the circumference of a semicircle or a half circle. And I left us a good little note right over here. It says, look at the shape to determine how to find circumference of a half circle. So this is really just kind of common sense. The formula that we're using for circumference of a circle is the circumference equals pi times diameter. So that's the same formula we're always using to find the circumference of a circle. All right, so if we do that, circumference equals pi times d, I can go ahead and plug in my numbers. I'm finding circumference, so I don't know it yet, and pi is 3.14, diameter in this case is 3. So I can multiply all this together, circumference 3.14 times 3, and I'm going to find out that my circumference equals 9.42. But guys, what that's really telling me is that that's the circumference of this whole circle. If this whole circle existed, that would be the circumference of that circle. But what we did, or what we have, is really just a half circle. So we have a circle that goes around like this, but it doesn't go all the way around. So that means, since it's only half of the circle, that we need to divide the circumference in half, because it's only this half of the circle that we're finding the circumference of. All right, so we divide 9.42 divided by 2, and we are going to find out that circumference is now 4.71. But that means that I've just gotten rid of this part here, right? So it's just this red part that's going to be gone. So I still have to find and add in this part right here, the diameter, because otherwise my half circle is an arc and it's not a half circle at all. So I have to add back that diameter. So I'm going to add back 3 more. So 4.71 plus 3, my final amount is going to be 7.71 centimeters. So that is my final answer. So let's review what we did again with our formula. So in order to find the circumference of any circle, it's c equals pi times diameter. But we said that this is a half circle, so we divide it by 2. But then we've got to add that diameter back on. So plus diameter. Okay, so this is the formula that you're going to use to help you solve the next problem. All right, so let's move on to over here. What I want you to do next is turn the page, and I want you to solve this half circle with that in that same way that we just solved for a semicircle on the last page. So go ahead, pause the video here, and look back at that last page to figure out how to solve to find the circumference of this half circle. All right, so hopefully you have that top semicircle problem done in the box that's right above this one. So we're going to do our last concept to review that we talked about prior to spring break. So in these problems, we're now going to use circumference to find the radius or the diameter of a circle. So, and I wrote out 3 steps for you of what you want to do in order to get there, okay? The first thing you want to do is write out that formula for circumference of a circle. And we've talked about that a little bit already of how important that is to do. So our formula is c equals pi times diameter. Boom, took 2 seconds. All right, now fill in the numbers you know in place of the variables. All right, so now I know circumference. Circumference is 7.222, and I know pi, so equals 3.14, and I do not know the diameter because that's what I'm trying to find. So diameter just stays as a variable. All right, guys, now what we have here is a one-step equation, right? We have 2 numbers, one on each side, and one of those numbers is multiplying times a variable. So our job is to isolate that variable. So we've drawn T-charts to show the 2 sides of the equation before. And since 3.14 is multiplying times the diameter, then if we divide by 3.14 here, well, 3.14 divided by 3.14 cancels out on that right side, so that we're just left with D. And whatever we do to one side of our equation, we always do to the other. So if we divided by 3.14 on the right, then we have to divide by 3.14 on the left. So in my calculator, I'm typing in 7.222 divided by 3.14, and I'm going to get 2.3. All right, so that's my diameter. Diameter is 2.3 inches because it says inches right here. So if that's my diameter, then now all I have to do is find my radius. So in order to find that, my radius is half my diameter. So I'm going to type into my calculator. Oops, that's not what I'm typing in. I'm going to type into my calculator 2.3 divided by 2. And I get 1.15. So that's half, which means that's the radius. All right. So make sure you have all this copied down. If I went a little too fast, then rewind the video and rewatch and re-listen to what I said. All right, next slide. So you're going to use the slide that we just finished to help you solve this problem. It's exactly the same. The numbers are just different. And again, I wrote out the 3 steps for you, such as write out the formula for circumference of a circle. Circumference equals pi times diameter. All right, so now you're going to fill in the numbers you know in place of the variables and solve that one-step equation. And then what you'll find, right, is the diameter, so you'll also have to find the radius. Go ahead, pause the video, and solve that problem now. All right, guys, so we are done with our notes for today. So your job is going to be to just go back through these pages and make sure that each problem in this packet is complete and you have used your notes to help you solve each of the practice problems. You're going to submit your completed notes to Schoology for me, and then you're going to go to ScoopPad and complete today's assignment. Remember, I told you it's only 8 questions. Some of them are pretty fast and easy, so I do not think this will take you too long at all. The assignment is called Radius, Diameter, Circumference Practice. So go ahead and work on those problems, and that's it for today's class. Have a good one, guys. See you tomorrow.